Again, thanks for joining. I'm Deepa Reddy, Senior Systems Engineer at Decos, and I will be your host for this webinar today. A smooth and user-friendly user interface, which is UI, coupled with an engaging user experience, is essential for any organization's prosperity. It acts as the crucial link between users and technology, guaranteeing that interactions are not only efficient but also pleasurable and devoid of frustration. And allocating resources to top-notch UI/UX design is analogous to laying the cornerstone of a thriving, customer-focused business model as it leads to customer satisfaction, loyalty, and industry leadership. But what is involved in UI and UX design? Well, let us explore the fundamentals of UI/UX design in today's webinar. Hope you will find this webinar insightful. Let's get started. The agenda for today is to describe the listed topics, which are user interface and user experience, UI and UX design, design thinking, principles and stages, UX design concepts, UI/UX guidelines, tools and software. Before we go further into the webinar, let us understand what UI and UX is. So, user interface, also known as UI, refers to the way humans interact with when using a website, app, or other electronic device. This includes screens, buttons, toggles, icons, and other visual elements, whereas user experience or UX refers to the entire interaction users have with the product, including how users feel about the interaction. Some examples to mention include Instagram, Spotify, Google Apps, etc., which all have a very good user interface and user experience as well. Before we go into the next topic, I would like to take a poll. Here's your question. Are you aware of the difference between UI and UX design? I repeat, are you aware of the difference between UI and UX design? I see that most of the participants are aware of the difference between UI and UX design. Let us understand the fundamentals of UI/UX design, which covers design thinking and UX design process in the remaining webinar. Let us now see what UX and UI design is. So, UX design is what makes an interface useful. It is the process used by designers to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. Whereas UI design is what makes an interface beautiful. It is the process used by designers to build interfaces in software or computerized devices, focusing on style and looks. So UI design is a facet of UX concerned only with developing a pleasant, easy to use interface for a product or a website. As you can see in this diagram, both UI and UX share few processes in common, like empathy, collaboration, design thinking, prototyping, etc. But UI design mainly focuses on visual design, colors, typography, interactivity and animation, and layouts. Whereas UX design mainly focuses on user research, wireframes, information architecture or IA, interaction design, and scenarios. A UX designer's job is to create a product that provides the best possible user experience. But how does that happen? Well, it starts with a lot of research. You can't create anything of a value to a user unless you understand what kind of problems they want to solve and how you can solve those problems so that the user will need your solution. You can get that understanding only by interacting with the users. There are 5 elements or layers within the UI/UX design, which are strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, and surface. Strategy involves user needs and business goals. Scope involves functional and content requirements. Structure involves information architecture and interaction design. Skeleton involves interface, navigation, and information design. Finally, surface layer. This layer involves visual design, which is the amalgamation of all the five layers below. UX design involves all five layers, whereas UI design is all about the visual design, which is the surface layer. Now that we have understood about UI and UX design, let us see what design thinking framework is and how does it apply to UX design. Well, design thinking framework is a user-centered approach to problem solving that includes activities like research, prototyping, and testing to help you understand who your users are, what their problems are, and what your design should include. It is non-linear and an iterative process. This human-centered design process involves five core stages, as you can see in this picture, which is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and testing. Empathize is to research user needs. Define is to state user needs and problems. Ideate is to generate ideas or solutions to the defined problems. Prototype is to start creating the solutions. And testing is to do a reality check of your solutions. So with this feedback in hand, the design team decides which issues to address and then improvements are made. Let us understand these stages in detail as we go further through this webinar. As you can see in this image, UX and design thinking go hand in hand. UX designers use design thinking to tackle unknown problems because they can reframe these in human-centric ways and focus on what's most important for the users. And it is almost certainly the best for thinking outside the box. So with design thinking, teams can do better UX research, prototyping, and usability testing so that to uncover new ways to meet users' needs. UX design involves the following main tasks: conducting user research to identify any goals, needs, behaviors, and pain points involved with the product interaction. Next, developing user personas based on target customers, followed by creating user journey maps to analyze how a customer interacts with the product, building wireframes and prototypes to hone in on what the final product will look like, then performing user testing to validate the design decisions and to identify any potential problems, and finally collaborating with stakeholders, UI designers, and developers. Let us now look into these concepts of UX design and activities involved in these design stages. First stage of UX design is to empathize with users and understand their pain points. So a user researcher is responsible for providing insights regarding the needs of end users based on information that is generated from the research that the user researcher is conducting with the users, which can be done through surveys using tools like Google Surveys or SurveyMonkey, competitor audit review, user interviews, which can be in person or remote, quantitative audits using systems like system usability scale, etc. These user insights are presented as empathy maps. So an empathy map is a collaborative visualization which is used to articulate what we know about a particular type of user. It externalizes knowledge about users in order to create a shared understanding of user needs and aid in decision making. So there are two types of empathy maps: one user empathy map and the aggregated empathy maps, which is also known as multiple user empathy maps. So the empathy maps of similar users are grouped together and put it as aggregated empathy maps. And these empathy maps explore users' four main motivations. So what the user says, what the user thinks, what the user does, and what the user feels. So here is an empathy map that provides insights which help you come up with ideas for solutions that address the user's real problems. So in this example, a typical user, he says that I wish bouquet apps provided more accurate time estimates, and he thinks skeptical about 4-hour guarantee delivery, and what he does is only orders bouquets for special occasions, and he feels that frustrated the delivery services aren't that reliable. So this is a empathy map of a user. The next activity in this empathy stage is to analyze and synthesize the research to identify insights and opportunities for design, which can be done using affinity diagramming. So, affinity diagramming is also called as affinity mapping, collaborative sorting, snowballing, etc. So, all these refers to organizing related facts into distinct clusters. So, as you can see in this picture, so the research data is clusterized into the things that are similar. And also in this stage, we will identify the insights. So insight is an observation about people that helps you understand the user or their needs from a new perspective, from the user's perspective. This is what done in the analyze and synthesize stage. Now that we have covered stage 1 empathy, the next stage in the UX design process is define, where we state users, needs, and problems. This process involves mapping potential roadblocks, interpreting user research, and defining problem and hypothesis statement for ideation. The first activity in this stage is to create persona. Persona is a fictional character which represents your target users that provides meaningful archetypes which can be used to assess the design approach, and it places the users who you're designing for front and center. So in this example, we have a persona of a user named Dia. So it is showing demographic details, goals, frustrations, and finally the persona statement, which is used in further stages to come up with the solutions. So here the persona Dia. So Dia is a married mother of 2 toddlers, passionate to admire nature and its bounty, always willing to keep home more lively with plants and flowers, often seems busy managing work and taking care of her toddlers, and finds difficult to visit florist with her toddlers. She loves to give flowers for all occasions. She has sight issues and dyslexia. Wish she could preview the bouquets online using an app with accessibility and screen reader and place the order easily and quickly. So based on this user persona, user stories are written. So user stories are used to determine which user needs are the most critical to address with your designs. This direction will help you focus on your ideation stage. So typically a structure of a user story is shown in the image. It will cover who the user is, what does the user intend to do, and why. Example, as a flower admirer, I want to order bouquets quickly and easily online so that I don't have to visit a florist, leaving my 2 toddlers behind. So after persona and creation of user stories, user journey maps are created. So user journeys help us come up with ideas for designs that will truly support the user's needs and solve their problems. It conveys how user will use an app and its use case, showing the top level view of user interaction with that product or service, and also the different stages and scenarios of the interaction, but not too specific in terms of functionality or interaction patterns. In this example, Dia uses an app to find and order best bouquet for a special occasion. So as Dia uses the app, she performs some actions followed by a particular few tasks, but she experiences some frustrations and also has some positive thoughts and improvement points about the app. So the actions include selecting a flower shop, browsing through the menu, placing order, completing order, and picking up the order. After we have mapped the user journey, the next activity is to define a problem statement. A problem statement, which is also known as a user need statement, is a clear description of the user's need that should be addressed. It is structured as follows. It has a user name, user characteristics, user need, and insight. We can utilize the 5W and H framework, which is the most common framework used to build a problem statement. So after you define the user pain points, you can answer who, what, when, where, why, and how to solve the user's problem by following who is experiencing the problem, what are the pain points you're trying to solve, where is the user when they are using the product, when does the problem occur, why is the problem important, how are users reaching their goals by using the product. So, as an example, Dia is a homemaker who needs an online app to order flowers and bouquets from a local florist quickly and easily because she doesn't have time to visit the shop in person, leaving her toddlers at home. So, this is a problem statement for our previous persona, Dia. A problem statement is then followed by a hypothesis statement. So, what exactly is a hypothesis statement? Well, it is an educated guess about what you think the solution to a design problem might be. So, it is just a guess. It is not, it is just a might be. So, hypothesis statements don't have a single standard formula to follow, but there are two common methods you can try using to write one. So, the first one is if and then statement. The second one is we believe statement. As an example, if Dia signs up for the bouquet app, then she will quickly and easily pick a bouquet that fits her choices. Next, we believe. So we believe that easy access to available bouquets for Dia will increase the amount of orders she places. So this is how we can construct the hypothesis statement. The next activity in this stage is value proposition. Value proposition is a statement that clearly communicates the benefits of a product or service that will provide to its target customers. It summarizes why a consumer should use a product or a service. So here is a value proposition canvas depicting the product and the customer. So to start, you need to do some research in order to answer these two questions. What does your product do? Here we have to clearly explain the offering that your product will provide to the users and why should the user care. Here it should describe how your product addresses users pain points. For example, check out a product you might recognize, Gmail, which is Gmail, and ask yourself if you can identify a few of its value propositions. So when Google debuted Gmail in 2004, it had two unique value propositions as listed here. Email conversation views, so which put individual emails in the context of a larger thread, and an entire gigabyte of storage, which was 1,000 times the amount of storage that competitors offered at that point of time. So these were the two value propositions of Google's Gmail when it was debuted. So the next activity here is a prioritization matrix. So a prioritization matrix is a 2D visual that shows the relative importance of a set of items based on two weighted criteria, which is value followed by feasibility. So feasibility or complexity or effort by an organization. So it mainly serves to identify the most important problems. The structured objective approach helps achieve collaborative consensus while also satisfying the varied needs of users and the business. After you land on a user problem and establish why it's an important one to solve, it's time for you to ideate. Yes, we are in ideate phase now. So design ideation, it is a third stage in design thinking process. And what do you mean by design ideation? So, well, let us see that. So design ideation is the process of generating a broad set of ideas on a given topic without judging or evaluating them. So when you start thinking of ideas, all you have to do is you want to come up with as many ideas as possible by following these steps. So after you have empathized with your user and defined the problem, so after you covered the two stages of defined thinking, you'll establish a creative environment, set a time limit, you'll assemble a diverse team, and then you'll think outside the box just to generate some ideas. So the aim here is to generate lots of ideas, even the ones that may seem ridiculous at first. So sometimes your most outrageous idea will turn into a great and unique solution. Who knows? So, brainstorming possible solutions to your design problems is an opportunity to get creative and also have some fun. Crazy Eights and the How Might We HMW exercise are the two most common ways to approach the ideation process. Crazy Eights is a great way to get ideas flowing for any design problem you need to solve. So, Crazy Eights also force you to think outside the box because you have to come up with many ideas in a short time frame without even judging them. This means that you'll have lots of unique, non traditional solutions to consider. With Crazy Eights, you'll sketch 8 different designs, each with a new idea for solving the user's problem. The best part, it only takes 8 minutes. So start with a large sheet of paper, fold the paper in half, then fold it in half again, then in half one more time. So when you unfold the paper, you will have 8 squares to sketch in as shown here. Next thing is grab something to draw with, set your timer to 8 minutes, let the ideas flow. Draw any and every solution that comes to your mind. If you have more than 8 solutions, feel free to repeat the exercise. So here is an example of Crazy 8 activity for a coffee house project. So there are 8 unique design ideas. So this is how a Crazy 8 exercise will look like. So now that you have created ideas using Crazy 8, here is one more method called How Might We? In short, HMW. So HMW is a great way to start thinking of potential solutions during the ideate stage of design process. During a HMW exercise, you would create a list of questions that start with how might we and use those to spark ideas for solutions. So to create good HMW questions, you need a well-defined problem statement. From that problem statement, you can rephrase into questions that will help you to come up with ideas to solve the problem. Consider this problem that a user, Darren, is facing. So Darren is a concert goer who needs to keep track of their concert ticket because they need the ticket when they go through the security. For this example, some of the how might we questions could be, how might we make keep tracking of the tickets a fun competition among friends? How might we make a way for concert goers to enter the venue without needing a ticket? How might we make a non-paper concert ticket? So these are some of the examples of how might we questions for this particular case. Well, coming up with good HMWs take a little practice, but you'll get the hang of it in no time. So here are some best practices to keep in mind. Be broad, but don't be too broad. Make multiple drafts. Be creative. Write as many HMW questions as you can. So once we ideate and come up with best possible solutions, these ideas are then reviewed by the stakeholders and the best possible solutions are chosen for further processes like user flow, storyboarding, sketching, wireframing, information architecture, which are then followed by the prototype stage and testing stage. So what is a user flow? So a user flow is a path taken by a typical user on an app or a website so that they can complete a task from start to finish. It gives us a bird's eye view of the future website, and the ultimate goal here is to get the users to their desired destination with as few clicks as possible. So here is an example of a user flow, starting from opening the app, landing in the home screen, searching for flowers, either adding to the wish list or adding to the cart, preview the order and checkout. Finally, order confirmation. So this is a typical user workflow. The next activity in this stage is to story user flow that we have just created. So what is storyboard? Storyboard is a series of panels or frames which are used to visualize the potential solutions to problems that users are facing. So here is a sample big picture and a close-up storyboard for the scenario. Use the Flora app to quickly and easily order bouquets. So as you can see in the big picture, Dia is frustrated with the florist website's navigation. She downloads the Flora app and opens it. She is happy that the app is screen reader friendly. She selects a bouquet of her choice and checks out. She collects the bouquet from a delivery agent. She is finally happy with the order and all ready for the party. Coming to the close up storyboard, Dia opens up the app. Dia is welcomed. Dia chooses her bouquet, enters the delivery address, reviews the charges, and checks out. Finally, the order is confirmed. The storyboarding activity is followed by sketching and wireframing activity. So the goal of creating wireframes is to establish the basic structure of a page. That is a simple black and white sketch to highlight the intended function of each element. These sketches are not the actual designs. And here is an example of paper wireframe and a digital wireframe of home screen for a bouquet preview app. So paper wireframes are used earlier in the design as these are easier to amend. The next activity is information architecture. So the information that your design presents, it needs to be clearly organized and sorted so that users can successfully experience and interact with the app or the website that you are creating. So this process of organizing information is called information architecture. So think of information architecture as a map for your product. It is also called as a sitemap. So information architecture is made up of three pieces: organization, hierarchy, then sequence. So organization is how different pieces of information connect in a product. Hierarchy is often called as tree structure, and it is where a larger category is placed at the top. Specific categories are related to the overall category. They are placed underneath. Peer information is placed side by side or on the same level as each other. Sequence. Sequence enables users to move through an app via certain orders or steps. So here is a structure of an information architecture or sitemap for a cooking website. Ideation stage is followed by prototyping. So prototyping is one of the most critical steps in the design process. A prototype is a representation of the end product that is used in order to see if the product teams are building the right solution for the desired users. There are several types of prototypes, like paper prototype, that's basically a sketch of a product, digital prototype, functional prototype, and more. So prototypes differ in terms of their fidelity to the final product. So a low fidelity or a lo-fi prototype, which doesn't include many details, is used by designers in the early stages of the project to make sure the content is correct. So whether they are covering all the content and all the icons and all the information. While the high fidelity or hi-fi prototype can be a fully functional and also behave like a real product, which is created at later stages of the design process to test all the current hypotheses. Testing is the fifth stage in the design thinking process, and it is a crucial component of product development. So once a prototype is ready, it is put in front of real users and see how it fares. So here is a process flow of a typical usability testing or a usability study. So starting from the test plan, creating scenarios and tasks, recruiting the participants, conducting the usability test, analyzing usability test data, creating and presenting the usability test report, and checking whether accepted recommendations have been incorporated. So these research feedback and insights are propagated to the design thinking process in iterating the prototypes for improvements. Before we go into the next topic, I would like to take a poll. I see that most of the participants answered yes. It is correct. Design thinking can be applied in any field. Now that we have covered the UI UX design activities, let us understand various UI guidelines or style guides that are used in UI and UX design. So UI style guides are a holistic set of guidelines or visual references to help the designers and product teams to keep the same visual design style all the time, ensuring a user-friendly experience and also an accessible user interface. So, ever wondered how does all the Google apps share the same color palettes? Blue, red, yellow, green, and the typography? Yes, that's the brand style guide of Google. In fact, Google follows a set of guidelines that it ensures across all its applications, and they also have their own guidelines called material design, which includes material symbol and icons. Similarly, Apple has its own guidelines called human interface guidelines. So these UI guidelines and style guides cover brand story, logo guidelines, color palette, typography, iconography, images, page layouts, design patterns, etc. Well, we have almost covered the basics of UI and UX. Here is the final topic for today's webinar, UI and UX tools and software. So there are various tools and softwares which are used by UI UX designers to design the interface, such as Sketch, Photoshop, Adobe XD, Illustrator, Zeppelin, Figma, InVision. So each tool or software has its own pros and cons. However, all these tools share similar functionalities and they serve as a great tool for UI design, UX design, graphics design, prototyping, wireframing, etc. It is always best to get hands-on on few different tools to work collaboratively with your fellow designers and also adapt to the organization's needs. So, in today's competitive landscape, a well crafted UI UX is not just a luxury but a necessity. So, investing in exceptional UI UX design is analogous to investing in the very foundation of a successful customer centered business model as it leads to satisfaction, loyalty, and industry leadership. Decos provides various services in the human factors and UX design, such as consultation, human factors services, usability regulatory compliance, UX design services, and remediation services. That's all for today. Thank you all for joining. Hope you found this webinar insightful. We will address all the questions you have submitted via email. If you have any additional inquiries, please feel free to contact us using the contact details provided on the screen. Kindly note that a recorded version of this webinar will also be made available on our website in approximately 1 week from now. We will also send you an email with the link to access the webinar at your registered email ID. Once again, thank you all for your time. Have a great day.